We live in a world that constantly tells us the answer to every financial struggle is simple: work harder, add more hours, sacrifice yourself until there is nothing left. And many people do exactly that. They wake up early, come home late, exhaust their bodies and minds, yet somehow their lives still feel tight. The money comes in, but it slips away just as fast. Stress replaces peace, and no matter how much effort they give, it never feels like enough. This is where Islam gently reminds us of a truth the world often ignores. Hard work without barakah will always feel heavy. Barakah is not something you can calculate on a spreadsheet. It doesn't show up in your salary slip, but you feel its presence in your life. Two people can earn the same amount, yet one feels constantly anxious and overwhelmed, while the other lives with calm, contentment, and stability. The difference is not intelligence or effort. The difference is whether Allah has placed barakah in what they earn. When barakah is missing, even large incomes shrink. Unexpected expenses appear, health suffers, relationships strain, time disappears. You wonder where everything went and why life feels so hard despite all the work you put in. Allah never discouraged effort. Islam honors work, discipline, and striving. But effort was never meant to stand alone. When work is disconnected from obedience, remembrance, and reliance on Allah, it becomes a burden rather than a blessing. That is why the Prophet taught us that true richness is not having many possessions, but having contentment in the heart. A small income with barakah can feed a family, bring peace to a home, and leave room for generosity. A large income without it can leave a person constantly chasing more, never satisfied, never at ease. So before asking why our hard work is not making us wealthy, we must ask a deeper question. Is our effort aligned with Allah, or is it only driven by fear and pressure? Because when Allah places barakah in your work, even little becomes enough. One of the most powerful truths that brings peace to a restless heart is understanding that rizq is not random, it is not luck, and it is not a reward only for those who struggle the hardest. Your provision was written by Allah long before you ever applied for a job, started a business, or worried about your future. This knowledge alone should calm the anxiety that eats away at so many people today. Yet Islam does not teach us to sit back and wait. It teaches us to seek our rizq, but to seek it with the right heart. Many people chase wealth with panic in their chest. They fear falling behind, fear what people will say, fear not having enough. That fear slowly turns into desperation, and desperation pushes a person to compromise. Corners are cut. Halal and haram start to blur. The heart becomes attached to the means instead of the one who provides. When that happens, even though a person is running, they feel like they are always behind. The harder they chase, the more exhausted they become, because their heart is carrying a weight it was never meant to carry. Tawakkul changes everything. It does not mean laziness, and it does not mean a lack of ambition. Tawakkul means you work with excellence while your heart rests with Allah. You take the step, but you trust Him with the outcome. You apply, you strive, you plan, but you know that nothing will reach you unless Allah allows it, and nothing meant for you will ever miss you. When the heart truly believes this, work feels lighter. Decisions become clearer. You stop comparing your journey to others, because you know your provisions is uniquely written for you. Intention also reshapes how rizq arrives. When earning becomes an act of worship, When you seek halal provision to support your family, give charity, and live with dignity, Allah places ease in your path. Doors open in unexpected ways. Opportunities appear where you didn't plan. And even delays begin to make sense, thinking, because you trust that Allah is not withholding out of neglect, but protecting you with wisdom, King. When the heart relies on Allah, rizq stops being a chase and starts becoming a promise, thinking. There is a reality many people overlook when they talk about wealth, King, and it is uncomfortable because it forces us to look inward instead of outward. Sometimes the problem is not the market, think the economy, or a lack of opportunity. Sometimes the doors feel closed because something unseen is standing in the way, thinking. Islam teaches us that sins are not just spiritual mistakes, they have consequences that reach into our daily lives. Thinking, including our provision. A person may work honestly in appearance, thinking, yet carry habits that quietly block barakah from entering their earnings. Think about how lightly some obligations are treated, salah delayed, rushed, or abandoned altogether. In truth stretched in business because of everyone does it. Haram income justified because times are hard. Rights of others ignored, whether it's underpaying someone, lying to customers, thinking, or hurting family members with our words and behavior. None of this feels connected to money in the moment. But in the sight of Allah, these actions matter. Thinking. The Prophet warned that a servant may be deprived of provision because of a sin they commit. Not because Allah is harsh, but because disobedience creates a distance, and distance weakens blessings. What makes this especially dangerous is that these barriers are silent. Nothing dramatic happens. You don't wake up to an empty bank account overnight. Instead, you notice constant struggle. Money comes but never stays, King. Unexpected expenses keep appearing. Plans fall apart at the last moment. Motivation fades. You work harder, King, but progress feels stuck. And the more pressure you feel, the easier it becomes to fall into even more compromises. Thinking, creating a cycle that tightens instead of opening. Islam does not leave us without hope here. The same Lord who closes a door because of disobedience opens doors wider than we can imagine through repentance. Turning back to Allah, correcting our salah, cleaning our income, repairing relationships, thinking and seeking forgiveness are not just spiritual acts, they are keys to relief. When a person removes what angers Allah, they remove what blocks their rizq. Before looking for new strategies, thinking. Sometimes the real breakthrough begins with sincere repentance. King. There comes a point where a person realizes that no amount of planning, networking, or effort can control everything. King. You can do everything right on paper and still feel stuck. This is where Islam teaches us that there are doors effort alone cannot open. There are forms of provision that are not earned by sweat but by sincerity. Dua, tawakkul, and istighfar are not last resorts for the desperate. Thinking, they are powerful tools for the believer who understands where true control lies. Dua is an admission of need. Thinking, when you raise your hands, you are not just asking for money, but for ease, guidance, and protection from harm. You are saying, Yea, Allah, I have done what I can, King. Now I place this matter in your hands. That humility itself attracts mercy. Many people make dua casually, but when a heart truly depends on Allah, that dua carries weight. The Prophet taught us that Allah loves to be asked, thinking, and that He responds in ways we may not immediately recognize. Sometimes the answer is more wealth. Sometimes it is fewer problems. Both are forms of provision. Istighfar is equally transformative. Thinking, seeking forgiveness cleans the heart. and removes the spiritual rust that blocks blessings. All are promises in the Quran that those who seek forgiveness consistently will be granted relief, rain, wealth, and children. This is not metaphorical. Istighfar invites expansion into a constricted life. It softens hardships, eases anxiety, and opens doors that logic cannot explain. A tongue that is moist with istighfar attracts goodness in ways that effort alone never could. And then there is tawakkul, the balance between action and trust. True reliance is not passive. You work, you strive, you show up every day, thinking, but you release the obsession with outcomes. You stop carrying a burden Allah never asked you to carry. When the heart trusts Allah, fear loosens its grip. You stop forcing doors that are not meant for you and recognize opportunities that are. That calm clarity often becomes the very reason success finds you. When effort is backed by dua, polished by istighfar, and grounded in tawakkul, Allah multiplies what effort alone never could. Thinking. One of the biggest illusions of wealth in today's world is the belief that earning more automatically means living better. Islam challenges this idea at its root. You can increase your income and still feel trapped, worried, and unsatisfied. You can earn thousands more and yet feel poorer than before. Of thinking. That is because wealth in Islam is not defined by what enters your hands, but by what stays, what benefits you. Thinking. And what brings peace into your life. Without barakah, money turns into a source of pressure rather than comfort. Thinking. Look around and you will see people who earn a lot but are constantly anxious. Thinking. They worry about maintaining their lifestyle, about losing what they have, about how they appear to others. Their expenses grow with their income and contentment keeps moving further away. Debt replaces security. Comparison replaces gratitude. No matter how much comes in, it never feels sufficient. This is not a financial problem, it is a spiritual one. When the heart is not content, no amount of money can satisfy it. Islam teaches us that true richness is the richness of the soul. Contentment does not mean a lack of ambition, thinking, and it does not mean settling for less out of laziness. It means knowing when enough is enough. When a person is grateful, they spend with balance. They avoid waste. They make thoughtful decisions. Thinking. Barakah enters their wealth because it is handled with responsibility and purpose. A smaller income managed with gratitude often goes further than a large income handled with constant dissatisfaction. Thinking. Barakah also protects wealth from harm. It keeps money from being wasted on things that bring regret. It helps it serve a higher purpose, supporting family, helping others, and becoming a means of reward rather than stress. Thinking. When money is spent in halal ways and with the intention to please Allah, it transforms from a number into a blessing. Even simple living begins to feel rich because the heart is at ease. So instead of asking how to earn more, Islam invites us to ask a deeper question. Is what I have bringing me peace or just keeping me busy? At the end of all our striving, Islam asks us to look beyond numbers and status and ask what our wealth is really doing to us. Money itself is not evil, thinking, and poverty is not automatically a virtue, but every blessing comes with a test. If wealth pulls a person away from salah, thinking, weakens their humility or makes them forget the akhirah, then no matter how impressive it looks, it is not success. It is a trial that many fail without realizing it. True success is not measured by how much you own, thinking, but by how close you are to Allah while owning it. When wealth is earned through halal means and held with gratitude, thinking, it softens the heart instead of hardening it. A person who remembers Allah in ease is protected in hardship. They see money as a tool, not an identity. It allows them to give without fear, help without arrogance, and live without constant comparison. Their generosity becomes a form of worship, and their spending becomes intentional. This is the kind of wealth that carries light in it, King, because it brings a person closer to Allah rather than distracting them from Him. Danger comes when money becomes the goal instead of a means. When success is defined by applause, lifestyle, and recognition, the heart slowly shifts away from sincerity. Acts of worship feel like interruptions. Thinking, gratitude turns into entitlement. And the more a person gains, the emptier they feel. Islam warns us about this trap, not to scare us, but to protect us. Wealth that disconnects you from Allah is not a reward, King. It is a responsibility that will be questioned. But when a person aligns their work with their faith, something beautiful happens. Their job becomes a means of serving Allah. Their income becomes a path to sadaqah. Their success becomes a reason for humility rather than pride. Even challenges in wealth become reminders to return to Allah, not reasons to despair. This is why some people with modest means feel rich, while others with abundance feel lost. In the end, thinking, the most successful people are not those who earned the most, but those whose wealth brought them closer to Allah.